Let's begin by stepping into that heart. A tropical rainforest is not merely a collection of trees. It is the most complex biological system on land, a multi-layered universe operating on a scale that dwarfs human engineering. The canopy you see, where those sunlight beams filter through, is just one level a dense roof that can be over 100 feet thick, home to half of all rainforest life. Creatures here may never touch the ground in their entire lifetimes. Below it lies the understory, a dim world of shrubs, young trees, and predators on the prowl. And then there's the forest floor, a surprisingly thin layer of soil because the nutrients are not stored in the ground but are locked in the living vegetation itself. This is a critical point. The rainforest is a closed-loop recycling system of astonishing efficiency. When a leaf falls or a tree dies, an army of decomposers, fungi, insects, microbes breaks it down with incredible speed, and the nutrients are immediately sucked up by a vast, shallow network of roots. Nothing is wasted. This system has allowed these forests to thrive on ancient, nutrient-poor soils for millions of years. Now, consider the scale of life here. A single hectare, about 2.5 acres, can contain over 750 species of trees and 1,500 species of higher plants. To put that in perspective, all of North America and north of Mexico has about 1,000 tree species total. This biodiversity is not a random accident. It's a result of co-evolution over immense time frames. Plants have developed intricate relationships with animals for pollination and seed dispersal. Some trees can only be pollinated by one specific species of bee or bat. This creates a web of interdependence so tight that removing one thread can cause unforeseen collapses. The iconic jaguar, the apex predator, regulates populations of herbivores, which in turn shapes the growth of saplings and the composition of the forest itself. It's a dynamic, self-correcting system. And those beams of sunlight, they are the engine of this entire operation. In that competitive vertical world, plants have evolved every conceivable strategy to capture a sliver of that precious light. There are leaves with drip tips to shed torrential rain, lianas that climb relentlessly to the canopy, and epiphytes like orchids and bromeliads that live entirely on other plants, drawing moisture from the air and nutrients from decaying matter caught in their own personal pools. This light fuels photosynthesis, which does more than just feed the forest. It drives transpiration, where trees release water vapor into the atmosphere. A single large tree can release hundreds of gallons of water a day. This process creates its own weather, the flying rivers you may have heard about. These massive plumes of moisture rise, form clouds, and are carried by wind to water continents. The Amazon, for instance, influences rainfall patterns as far away as the American Midwest. So when you look at a beam of light in a rainforest, you are not just looking at a pretty visual, you are looking at the ignition spark for a planetary life support system. This system, perfected over eons, is now facing a threat it has never encountered before: industrialized human consumption. The chainsaws and bulldozers don't just remove trees, they dismantle an ancient, non-replicable machine. The thin soil, once exposed to direct sun and rain, bakes hard and washes away in a few seasons, leaving behind a barren, infertile landscape. The closed loop is broken, the nutrient cycle ends, and the land becomes a ghost of what it once was. The loss is permanent on a human timescale. We are not just clearing land, we are erasing a unique library of life and dismantling a global climate stabilizer, and the first victims of this destabilization will be the very agricultural systems that the cleared land was meant to support. It is the ultimate self-defeating prophecy. This brings us to the most immediate and personal connection for every single one of us: the air we breathe. The phrase lungs of the planet is often used for rainforests, and while scientifically nuanced, its core truth is undeniable. Through photosynthesis, these vast forests absorb colossal amounts of carbon dioxide, the primary greenhouse gas, driving climate change, and store it as wood, leaves, and roots. A mature rainforest is a carbon powerhouse. locking away centuries of accumulated carbon. Scientific estimates suggest that the world's tropical forests store over 250 billion tons of carbon in their biomass alone. That's about 90 years' worth of current global fossil fuel emissions. When a forest is burned or cleared, this carbon is not simply released, it is weaponized, exploding back into the atmosphere as CO2, accelerating global warming at a terrifying pace. Deforestation and forest degradation are responsible for roughly 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions, more than the entire global transportation sector. But the role of forests in climate goes far beyond being a carbon bank. Think back to those flying rivers. The transpiration from the Amazon creates a low-pressure system that pulls moist air inland from the ocean. This hydrological pump is crucial for rainfall across South America. As deforestation fragments the forest, this pump weakens. Scientists warn of a tipping point. If enough forest is lost, the entire system could flip from a moist, closed canopy rainforest to a drier, savanna-like state. This isn't a distant theory. We are seeing signs of it already. The dry season in parts of the Amazon is lengthening, and large trees, adapted to constant moisture, are dying. If this tipping point is crossed, the Amazon would begin emitting more carbon than it absorbs, becoming a net source of climate change rather than a buffer. The consequences would be catastrophic and global. Rainfall patterns that feed agricultural heartlands in South America and beyond would shift, threatening food security for millions. Loss of this giant thermal mass would also alter regional and even global wind and weather patterns, but the impact is not just about macroclimate, it's about micro-survival. Rainforests are a primary source of atmospheric oxygen, but more importantly, they are a giant filter. They absorb pollutants and produce compounds that help cleanse the atmosphere. They also directly influence local temperatures. A standing forest can be 5 to 10 degrees Celsius cooler than a cleared patch of land. This cooling effect, on a large scale, helps mitigate the urban heat island effect in nearby cities. So, the destruction of a rainforest in the Congo or Indonesia doesn't just affect that region, it contributes to the heat waves in Europe, the intensity of hurricanes in the Atlantic, and the droughts in California. Your local weather is increasingly linked to the health of these distant forests. Every hectare cleared is a step towards a more volatile, unpredictable, and extreme climate for everyone on Earth. The security of our food, water, and shelter is inextricably tied to the stability that these forests provide. We are quite literally sawing off the branch we are all sitting on, and the sound of that saw is growing louder by the day, masked by the short-term profits of a few, but paid for by the long-term security of all. Beyond the physical systems of climate and air, the rainforest holds a vault of biological solutions to human problems that we have only begun to crack open. This is the world's greatest natural pharmacy and innovation lab. Nearly 25% of all modern medicines derive from rainforest plants, and scientists have studied less than 1% of the potential plant species for their medicinal properties. Think about that for a moment. A system covering just 6% of the Earth's land surface offers a quarter of our current pharmacological solutions from a tiny fraction of its inventory. The rosy periwinkle from Madagascar gave us drugs that turned childhood leukemia from a death sentence into a largely curable disease. The bark of the cinchona tree provided quinine, the foundation for malaria treatment. The venom of the lancehead viper led to blood pressure-controlling ACE inhibitors. These are not alternatives. They have been foundational. And we are losing potential cures faster than we can discover them. Every time an acre of rainforest is burned, we are potentially burning the only cure for a future pandemic, a novel cancer, or neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's. The solutions aren't just for medicine. The intricate structures of rainforest plants and animals are inspiring breakthroughs in material science, a field known as biomimicry. The slick surface of the lotus leaf, which repels water and dirt, has inspired self-cleaning paints and fabrics. The incredible strength and lightness of the structure of a dragonfly's wing are informing new designs for drones and lightweight construction. The complex social networks of leafcutter ants are providing models for more efficient traffic management and data network algorithms. The rainforest is a living library of 4 billion years of research and development, where failure has been fossilized and success has been refined to a stunning degree. Every extinct species represents a lost set of blueprints, a unique answer to a survival challenge that we can no longer study or learn from. Furthermore, the genetic diversity locked within these forests is a critical insurance policy for global agriculture. Our staple crops are vulnerable to disease, pests, and changing climate conditions. Wild relatives of plants like coffee, cocoa, bananas, and rice, which still grow in rainforests, contain genetic traits like drought tolerance, disease resistance, or higher nutritional value that we may desperately need to breed into our domesticated varieties to feed a growing population on a warming planet. By destroying the rainforest, we are not only eliminating future medicines and technologies, we are actively compromising our current agricultural system's ability to adapt and survive. The value of a single species, once understood, can run into the billions of dollars, but we cannot put a price on what we do not know. The ethical dimension is profound. Do we, as a species, have the right to erase millions of years of evolutionary history, to extinguish unique forms of life for short-term gain? This isn't about saving cute animals. It's about preserving the foundational knowledge and biological wealth that all human advancement and survival may one day depend upon. The loss is not just an ecological tragedy. It is an act of irrevocable intellectual and practical bankruptcy. Understanding the scale and drivers of this destruction is crucial, because the narrative is often oversimplified. It's not just about loggers or poor farmers. It is a complex economic chain driven by global demand, and you are almost certainly connected to it. The primary direct causes are clear: conversion for industrial agriculture, especially cattle ranching, soy plantations, and oil palm, logging, both legal and illegal, mining, and infrastructure projects like roads and dams. Cattle ranching is the biggest driver in the Amazon, responsible for about 80% of deforestation there. The beef and leather from these ranches enter global supply chains, ending up in fast food burgers, processed foods, and consumer goods worldwide. Soy production, much of which is used as animal feed for poultry, pigs, and cattle, in places like Europe and China, is another massive driver. In Southeast Asia, the conversion to oil palm plantations for palm oil, an ingredient in roughly half of all packaged supermarket products, from cookies and shampoo to lipstick and detergent, is the dominant cause. Behind these direct drivers lie indirect ones: land speculation, corruption, weak governance, and a global economic system that values immediate commodity extraction over long-term ecological services. A standing forest is often seen as having zero economic value in traditional accounting, while a cleared piece of land for beef or soy has a clear market price. This fundamental flaw in how we value nature is at the core of the problem. Furthermore, deforestation is rarely a simple cut and leave process. It follows a predictable sequence. First, valuable hardwood trees are selectively logged, creating access roads deeper into pristine areas. Then, smaller trees and vegetation are often burned to clear the land quickly and cheaply. These fires, set intentionally, frequently rage out of control, burning vast areas of standing forest. The land is then used for a few years of intensive agriculture or grazing until the poor soil is exhausted, after which it is abandoned and the frontier pushes deeper, repeating the cycle. This creates a fragmented landscape, islands of forest surrounded by degraded land. This fragmentation is a death sentence for countless species that require large, continuous territories to survive. It also dries out the edges of the remaining forest, making it more susceptible to devastating wildfires. The human cost is also immense. Many rainforests are home to indigenous peoples who have lived in and stewarded these environments for millennia. Their knowledge of the forest ecology is unparalleled. Studies show that indigenous managed territories have deforestation rates significantly lower than even officially protected areas. These communities are on the front lines, often facing violence and displacement from land grabbers and illegal operations. Their fight is not just for their homes. It is for a vital global resource. So, when you buy a product containing palm oil, or eat beef linked to Amazon clearance, or purchase exotic hardwood furniture, you are casting a vote in this system. The supply chains are long and opaque, designed to be that way, but the connection is real. The destruction is not a remote event. It is funded by everyday consumption patterns in wealthy nations and growing economies. Recognizing this interconnectedness is the first step toward breaking the chain. All of this can feel overwhelmingly bleak, a problem so vast that individual action seems pointless. But that is precisely the mindset the destructive system relies upon. The truth is, we have the knowledge, the technology, and, if mobilized, the collective will to change course. The solutions exist at multiple levels, and every single person has a role to play. At the systemic level, it starts with proper valuation. Governments and international bodies must integrate the true value of forests, their carbon storage, water regulation, biodiversity, and cultural services into economic decision-making. Mechanisms like REDD+, reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, when implemented transparently and with the full involvement of local communities, can make forests more valuable standing than cut down by creating financial flows for conservation. Stronger law enforcement and prosecution of illegal deforestation, coupled with satellite monitoring systems that are now publicly accessible, are critical. Consumer countries must enact and enforce laws that block the import of commodities linked to deforestation, forcing entire industries to clean up their supply chains. At the corporate level, companies must move beyond vague sustainability pledges to implement fully traceable, deforestation-free supply chains with independent verification. But the most powerful and often overlooked solution is the formal recognition and securing of land rights for indigenous peoples and local communities. They are the most effective guardians of the forest. Supporting their territorial claims and their traditional ways of life is not just a moral imperative. It is the single most cost-effective climate and conservation strategy available. Now, what can you, as a viewer, do right now? Your power is in your choices, your voice, and your attention. First, educate yourself on the footprints of products. Look for credible certifications like the Forest Stewardship Council, FSC, for wood and paper, or the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, RSPO, for palm oil. Though be aware these are not perfect and continuous pressure for improvement is needed. Reduce your consumption of beef and dairy, as the livestock sector is the largest single driver of tropical deforestation. Support companies and brands that are genuinely transparent and committed to deforestation-free supply chains. Second, use your voice. Talk about this issue. Share this video. Demand action from your political representatives. Ask for strong laws that hold corporations accountable for environmental destruction in their supply chains, no matter where it occurs. Support, through donations or amplification, organizations that are on the ground protecting forests and the rights of indigenous communities. Third, remember that this is not a sacrifice. It is an investment and a shift. It's about moving towards a circular economy that values regeneration over extraction. It's about recognizing that human well-being is not separate from planetary health. The image of those beams of sunlight in a dense rainforest should not become a relic of the past, a memory of what once was. It must remain a living symbol of resilience, complexity, and interconnected beauty. That light is a reminder that energy, creativity, and solutions are abundant in nature if we choose to learn from it rather than erase it. The next chapter for these forests is not yet written. We are all holding the pen. So here is what I need you to do today. This cannot end with you watching this video and feeling concerned. First, click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We are building an army of the informed here, and every subscriber makes our collective voice louder. Second, share this video right now. Share it on every platform you use. Tag someone who needs to see this. Break the bubble of ignorance. Third, go to the description below. I have linked resources, organizations you can support that are fighting on the front lines, a list of steps to audit your own consumption, and petitions targeting major corporations and governments. Pick one thing from that list and do it in the next 10 minutes. And fourth, leave a comment. Tell me one product you will investigate today or one action you will take. Let's hold each other accountable. This is not about perfection, it's about direction. We turned the tide on the ozone layer. We can do it here. But it starts with you, right now. Don't scroll away. Act. The forest's fate, and in many ways our own, is literally in your hands.